Emily Parker had worked at the Seattle office for only 3 months, yet every morning still felt a little overwhelming to her. The tall glass building, the busy lobby, the fast footsteps of workers moving in all directions, it all made her feel like she was still adjusting to this new life, like she had moved from a quieter town in Michigan hoping for growth, a fresh start, and maybe a chance to discover who she really wanted to be. What she didn't expect was the quiet attention of her supervisor, Daniel Hayes. He wasn't overly expressive, never crossed any boundaries, and always kept things professional. But there was something different about the way he looked at Hercom. Thoughtful and sometimes a second too long. Emily never let herself think about it too much. She didn't want to make assumptions or misread something innocent. But she couldn't deny the small flutter in her chest whenever she heard his footsteps or when his deep, steady voice called her name during meetings. She didn't come here for distractions, yet Daniel seemed to quietly shift the energy of her day without even trying. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Emily walked into the lobby shaking a few drops of water off her coat. She clutched her warm coffee cup, thankful for the heat against the early chill. The lobby was quiet. Most employees wouldn't arrive for another 10 minutes. She was early, as always. She liked having space to breathe before the fast pace of the office swept her away. But today, she wasn't alone. Daniel stood near the elevators, half leaning against the polished metal frame. He never waited in the lobby. Usually, he went straight to his office or joined the manager's group on the 4th floor. Seeing him there made her slow down, confused. He noticed her instantly, as if he had been waiting for her. And his expression changed from distant to something warmer. "Good morning, Emily," he said gently. His voice wasn't rushed or firm like it normally was at work. Instead, it held a softness she wasn't used to. Emily stepped closer, unsure whether she should feel nervous or curious. "Good morning," she replied, trying to sound normal even though her heartbeat quickened. Daniel glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to overhear. Can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked quietly. Emily nodded, though part of her wondered if she had done something wrong. Daniel motioned for her to follow him toward a quieter corner of the lobby, near a tall indoor plant. It felt strange to be pulled aside like this, away from the office, away from the usual noise of the morning. Daniel took a slow breath, as if preparing himself. "I've been meaning to speak with you," he began. Emily saw something in his eyes, a mix of hesitation and determination. She had never seen him look uncertain before. At work, Daniel was steady like a rock. But right now, he seemed like someone carrying a weight he wasn't sure how to put down. She waited, holding her coffee a bit tighter, feeling the tension rise between them. Daniel opened his mouth again. "There's something I should." His phone suddenly vibrated in his pocket. Loud, urgent. The sound broke the moment completely. He closed his eyes briefly, frustrated, then checked the screen. Whatever he saw made his jaw tighten. Emily didn't want to pry, but she sensed the call was important. "I'm sorry," he said, lowering his phone. "I have to take this." She nodded, slightly disappointed but trying not to show it. He hesitated again, then spoke in a quieter tone. "Can you meet me after the morning briefing, please? There's something I need to tell you. Something overdue." Emily felt her breath catch. The seriousness of his expression made her heart race faster. She didn't know what he wanted to say, but the weight of it pressed heavily between them. Before she could ask anything, Daniel stepped back, phone still buzzing, and walked toward the hallway. He turned once, looking at her with a mix of apology and urgency. Then he disappeared behind the glass doors, leaving her standing alone. The lobby suddenly felt colder. Emily took a slow breath as she walked toward the elevators. Her mind replayed every detail. Daniel waiting early, Daniel pulling her aside, Daniel sounding almost vulnerable. He was always so controlled, so composed. Seeing him unsure felt strange, almost intimate. But what was he going to confess? Had she done something at work? Had someone complained? Or was it something personal? Emily didn't know. And that uncertainty created a soft ache in her chest she didn't expect. When she reached her desk on the 10th floor, she couldn't focus on anything. Her computer screen glowed with unread emails, but her mind felt foggy. She tried typing replies, but her fingers slowed each time she remembered the look in Daniel's eyes. She didn't want to overthink, yet every moment in the lobby replayed, like a scene she couldn't escape by the time the morning briefing started. She could barely process the presentation slides or the numbers her team leader discussed. Daniel stood across the room, one hand in his pocket, listening to the meeting with complete attention. But he didn't look at her, not even once. She waited for him to glance her way, but he stayed focused on everything except her. The change felt sudden and heavy, almost like he was avoiding her. Emily told herself not to read too much into it. Maybe he just had a lot on his mind. Maybe the phone call changed something. Maybe he regretted pulling her aside. Still, the silence felt loud. After the meeting ended, Daniel didn't approach her. He spoke briefly with another manager, then stepped out of the room. No eye contact, no signal, no reminder about their conversation. Emily stayed seated, pretending to organize her papers. Inside, disappointment twisted quietly. She didn't like depending on anyone's attention, yet something about today made her feel strangely unsteady. She gathered her things and walked back to her desk, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. She had work to do. She had deadlines. She had responsibilities. But her mind stayed locked on one thing. Daniel had something to tell her. And whatever it mattered. Emily just didn't know yet whether it would change her day or her whole life. The moment the morning meeting ended, Emily felt an uneasy tightness in her chest. She waited a few seconds, hoping Daniel would turn around, maybe give her a small sign that he still wanted to talk. But he didn't. Instead, he walked out with quick steps, speaking to another manager as if he had forgotten she even existed. The quiet distance hit her harder than she expected. She tried to remind herself that he was her supervisor, not someone who owed her attention. But the truth was simple. His sudden withdrawal hurt in a way she didn't understand. Emily walked back to her desk, trying to push the strange feeling away. She opened her computer, forced herself to start replying to emails. But her thoughts kept drifting to the lobby, Daniel's voice, his expression, its unfinished sentence, the note he had passed to her. It all looped inside her mind, tightening her breath. She wished she could stop thinking about it, but the anticipation settled in her like weight. Around noon, she went to the break room to get lunch. Wasn't hungry, but she knew skipping meals would only make her more restless. The smell of warm food filled the room, and a few coworkers chatted around the small tables. Her friend Ava sat by the window, waving her over with a smile. "You look stressed," Ava said as Emily sat down. "Big project." Emily forced a small laugh. Something like that. Ava gave her a knowing look. She had always been good at reading people. Or someone said something. Emily froze slightly. She didn't want to tell Ava anything. Not when she didn't even understand it herself. But Ava wasn't the type to let things go easily. "Come on," Ava insisted, lowering her voice. "You can talk to me. Look like you're carrying a whole storm inside." Emily sighed gently. "It's complicated." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Complicated. That sounds like a person, a specific person." Emily didn't answer, but her silence said enough. Ava's eyes widened. "Wait, don't tell me this is about Daniel." Emily nearly choked on her sip of water. "Ava, no, it's not like that." Ava leaned in. "I've seen the way he looks at you." Emily's cheeks warmed with embarrassment. "Please don't start imagining things." But Ava didn't look convinced. "I'm not imagining, I'm observing. There's something there, even if you don't want to admit it yet." Emily looked down at her food, her thoughts spiraling. She didn't want to think that way. She didn't want to make assumptions. Yet Ava's words stirred a truth inside her she had been avoiding. "Besides," Ava continued, "he's been acting strange today. He left right after the meeting like something was bothering him. Emily nodded slowly. She had noticed that, too. Still, she didn't say more. She didn't want rumors. She didn't want drama. She just wanted clarity. After lunch, Emily returned to her desk, trying to focus on her work. Hours passed, but she felt distracted and out of rhythm. She refreshed her inbox multiple times, half expecting a message from Daniel, but nothing appeared. With every hour that passed, her earlier tension grew heavier. By late afternoon, she stepped away from her desk to grab some water. When she returned, something caught her eye, something small, folded, and placed neatly on her keyboard. Heart skipped. It was a note, unmistakably his handwriting. She picked it up with slightly trembling fingers. Meet me on the rooftop at 5. I owe you that conversation. A rush of emotions washed over her, relief, confusion, nervousness. She stared at the note, letting the words sink in. So he hadn't forgotten. He hadn't changed his mind. Still wanted to talk. But what could be so important that he would ask to meet her in a private spot away from everyone else? The day suddenly felt longer, like the clock refused to move. Emily tried again to work, but she kept glancing at the time. 3:40, 4:10. For 32, every minute felt heavier. Finally, at 4:58, she grabbed her coat and the note, her pulse racing in her ears. She walked toward the elevator, telling herself to stay calm. The rooftop was usually empty at that hour, used mostly by employees taking quiet breaks, but meeting her supervisor there. That was different. That meant whatever he wanted to say wasn't simple. When the elevator doors opened, the cool breeze from the rooftop hit her immediately. The sun was slowly dropping behind the Seattle skyline, tinting the sky with soft gold and fading blue. Emily stepped out, her breath mixing with the crisp air. Daniel stood near the railing, his back facing her. His posture looked tense, as if he had spent the last few minutes rehearsing something in his head. Emily approached slowly. "Daniel," she said softly. He turned around. His eyes carried that same conflicted warmth she had seen in the lobby, only stronger now. "Thank you for coming," he said in a quiet voice. Emily nodded, waiting for him to speak. She could tell he was nervous, which made her chest tighten again. "I know I was supposed to talk to you earlier," he said, "but things got complicated. And I didn't want to say something important in a hurry or in the wrong place." Emily kept her gaze steady, giving him space to continue. Daniel looked down at his hands for a moment, then back at her. "You've brought a kind of calm into the office without even trying. I didn't expect that. And I didn't expect." He hesitated. "I didn't expect to feel anything beyond respect and professionalism." Emily's heart fluttered painfully. She felt both closer and more uncertain than ever. He took a breath. "I've tried for weeks to keep things normal, but pretending hasn't helped. It's only made the silence louder." Emily swallowed. "Daniel, I appreciate your honesty." She wanted to say more, but before she could, a sudden voice from behind startled both of them. "Daniel, we need to talk." Emily turned sharply. There, standing by the rooftop door, was Claire Daniel's former fiancé. Her expression was tight with emotion, her gaze shifting between them. Emily felt the air around her freeze. Whatever she thought this conversation might be, this was not it. And suddenly, everything became even more complicated. Emily felt her breath stop the moment Claire walked onto the rooftop. The soft evening sky, the quiet breeze, the tense closeness she felt with Daniel, everything cracked apart in seconds. Claire stood only a few steps away, her eyes filled with confusion, frustration, and something that looked like hurt. Emily knew instantly this wasn't a simple interruption. This was personal. And she suddenly felt like she was standing in the middle of something she didn't fully understand. Daniel's posture shifted immediately. His shoulders tightened, and he stepped a little in front of Emily, not to hide her, but to shield her from the tension he knew was coming. "Claire," he said with a calmness that didn't match the storm in his eyes. "This isn't a good time." Claire crossed her arms, her voice trembling not with anger, but with the pain of someone carrying unanswered questions. "I think it is," she said. "I've been trying to talk to you for weeks, and you keep avoiding me." Emily took a small step back, not wanting to get caught in the middle of something unresolved. She didn't want to cause conflict in anyone's life. All she had wanted was clarity from Daniel, nothing more, nothing messy. "I should go," Emily whispered, barely audible. But Daniel turned around quickly. "Emily, please stay," he said gently. His voice was steady, almost protective. "You have nothing to walk away from." That one sentence made Emily freeze. He wasn't dismissing her. He wasn't choosing someone else. But standing there, with Claire staring at them, only made everything more confusing. Claire's eyes softened as she looked at Emily. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I'm not here to make you uncomfortable. I just need answers." Then she shifted her gaze back to Daniel, her voice tight. "Did you ever plan to explain anything to me? Or was I supposed to figure everything out on my own?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We ended things months ago, Claire. We both knew it wasn't working anymore. I thought we agreed to give each other space." Claire shook her head slowly. "Space isn't the same as silence." She looked at Emily again, but not with hostility. "I just needed to know the truth before I moved on from this place." Emily felt her heart twist. She understood that kind of pain, the pain of not knowing, the pain of guessing. Claire wasn't the villain here. She was someone looking for closure. Daniel's voice softened. "Claire, this has nothing to do with Emily. Please don't put her in the middle." "I'm not," Claire said, her voice breaking. "I just needed to look you in the eyes and ask if you ever cared at all." Daniel's expression changed. And for the first time, Emily saw something in him she hadn't noticed before: quiet guilt. Not about Emily, but about how things ended with Claire. He didn't speak harshly. He didn't deny anything. Instead, he spoke with a tired honesty. "I did care," he said gently, "but we were trying to force something that wasn't right anymore. You felt that too. We stopped seeing each other clearly. We stopped growing. And staying together out of habit wasn't fair to either of us." Claire blinked, tears forming, but not falling. She nodded slowly, almost as if she had known this truth all along and just needed to hear it spoken out loud. "I guess I just wanted to hear it clearly," she whispered. Daniel's eyes softened. "You deserve that clarity. I'm sorry I didn't give it sooner." With a small exhale, half relief, half heartbreak, Claire stepped back. "Take care, Daniel," she said. Then she glanced at Emily one last time. "And you too." Voice wasn't cold. If anything, it carried a sad kindness. Then she turned and walked through the rooftop door, leaving a heavy silence behind her. Emily stood still, unsure what to say, unsure what she was allowed to feel. She didn't want to be a reason for anyone's pain. She didn't want to step into something complicated. But the raw honesty of the moment left her emotions tangled. Daniel turned to her slowly, his expression filled with regret, apology, and something deeper, something meant only for her. "I didn't want you to see that," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "It's not my place to judge. I didn't want to be part of anything unresolved." "You're not," he replied gently. "Claire and I were over long before today. We just hadn't said the final words out loud." Emily looked at him, conflicted still. "I don't want to be the reason for tension." "You're not," he repeated firmly. "And you never will be." The sincerity in his voice softened her fear, but a new wave of uncertainty rose within her. "Daniel," she said carefully, "whatever you wanted to tell me. Maybe we should talk another day, after things settle." "Oh," he said immediately, taking a step closer. "I don't want to delay this anymore." Emily's heart thumped faster. She felt the gravity of the moment pulling her forward. Yet, she stayed still, giving him space to speak. I meant every word I said earlier, Daniel confessed. You changed the way I feel about coming to work. You bring light into the room without realizing it. And the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it became. Emily felt warmth rise in her chest, soft, cautious, undeniable. I don't expect anything from you, Daniel continued. I just needed to be honest. I didn't want to pretend around you anymore. She inhaled deeply, feeling her emotions settle into something steady. And what happens now? She asked softly. Daniel looked at her with a calm sincerity she hadn't seen before. "Kay, now," he said. "We take things one step at a time. No pressure, no rushing, just honesty and respect." Emily held his gaze, and for the first time since the morning, the tension inside her loosened. She didn't know where this path would lead, but she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time: hope. The rooftop felt different. Now quieter, softer, as if the city itself understood the shift happening between them. Emily let out a small breath. "Kay," she whispered. Daniel smiled, small, genuine, relieved. And under the fading light of the Seattle skyline, something new began. Gently, quietly, and unmistakably real. The next morning, Emily walked into the office with a heart that felt both heavier and lighter at the same time. The rooftop conversation replayed in her mind again and again, each memory carrying a new emotion: relief, fear, warmth, curiosity, and something she hadn't felt in years: possibility. She didn't know what the day would bring, but she knew something had changed between her and Daniel. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, meaningful shift that lived inside small glances and unspoken comfort. When she stepped into the lobby, the sky outside was still a soft shade of gray, the kind that made the whole building feel calm. She didn't expect to see Daniel there, but he stood near the same spot from yesterday, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed but alert, as if he had been waiting for her. The sight made her steps slow. He noticed her and gave her a soft smile. One that wasn't formal or polite, but warm, most relieved. Emily felt her breath hitch, just a little. "Good morning," Daniel said gently. Emily returned the smile. "Morning." It was a brief pause, but not an uncomfortable one. Felt like the kind of silence that held understanding instead of tension. Daniel stepped slightly closer, though still keeping the respectful space between them. "I wanted to check on you," he said quietly. "Yesterday was a lot." Emily nodded. "It was," she admitted. "Well, I'm okay." Daniel studied her face for a moment, making sure she meant it. Then he nodded too, looking grateful for her calm. "I meant everything I said," he added. "But I don't want this to make work difficult for you. Your comfort comes first, always." His sincerity softened her worries. "Thank you," Emily said. "I don't want anything to be complicated." "Neither do I," Daniel said. "That's why we'll be careful. We don't need to rush anything." Keen Emily appreciated that more than she could express. Before she could respond, a group of coworkers entered the lobby, chatting loudly. Instinctively, Daniel stepped back, giving Emily space and keeping things professional. She noticed it immediately, the way he balanced honesty with boundaries. It made her trust him more. They both walked toward the elevators without speaking again. But the small connection between them felt clear. When the elevator doors opened, Daniel subtly motioned for her to enter first, then stood on the opposite side, keeping everything proper. Simple, respectful actions, but they held a quiet meaning now. The doors closed, and the silence inside the elevator felt thick with unspoken thoughts. Emily stared ahead, but she could sense Daniel's presence like a soft pull, not overwhelming, just there. When they stepped off at the 10th floor, he gave her a small nod, the kind that said, "I'm here, but I'm letting you lead this pace." She nodded back, then walked to her desk with a steady breath. The day unfolded slowly. Work flowed. Deadlines approached. People came and went. To everyone else, it was a normal Wednesday. But for Emily, Every hour carried small moments that made her heart flutter. A brief glance from Daniel across the meeting room, a quiet acknowledgement when she presented a report. The careful space he gave her while still being present, but nothing felt inappropriate or unprofessional. If anything, the respect between them became stronger around noon. Emily stepped outside the building to get a bit of fresh air. Seattle's cool breeze brushed across her face as she stood near the sidewalk watching cars pass. She didn't hear Daniel approaching until he was only a few steps away. "Mind if I join you?" he asked softly. Emily shook her head. Not at all. They stood side by side, neither of them rushing to fill the silence. The calm between them felt safe. Daniel glanced at her with a thoughtful expression. "You don't have to answer this," he began carefully, "but how do you feel about everything?" Emily looked out at the moving traffic, choosing her words slowly. "I feel surprised," she said, "and a little scared, but also hopeful." Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes softening. "I understand all of that, truly." She turned her head slightly to look at him. "What about you?" His gaze held hers with a steady honesty. "I feel relieved, and I feel grateful, and I feel like, for the first time in a long time, something makes sense." Emily felt warmth rise in her chest. They didn't need dramatic declarations. 'Twas enough raw, honest, gentle. A few coworkers stepped outside then, laughing loudly as they walked past. Daniel didn't move closer or try to hide anything. He simply stayed as he was, respectful and open, letting the moment breathe without pressure. "We should head back," Emily said softly. "Yes," Daniel agreed, his tone warm as they walked inside. Emily realized something important. Nothing about this felt rushed or overwhelming. It felt balanced, grounded, and real. They weren't jumping into anything. They were stepping carefully, thoughtfully, and with respect for every boundary. Back at her desk, she found a small sticky note left under her mouse pad. His handwriting again. A short message. "Thank you for trusting me. Coffee after work. Only if you're comfortable." Emily smiled without meaning to. She looked up across the room, and Daniel was already looking away, pretending to read a document. But the slight shift in his shoulders told her he was waiting for her reaction. She wrote her reply on the sticky note. Double quotes, yes, but somewhere quiet. She slipped it onto the corner of his desk as she passed by to deliver some files. Daniel saw it and just barely smiled. The day went on. Now there was a soft excitement beneath everything. When work finally ended, Emily walked outside and found Daniel waiting near the steps. He didn't rush forward or make any bold gesture. He simply offered a warm smile. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. They walked to a small cafe a few blocks away, cozy, quiet, tucked under hanging lights. They ordered coffee and found a corner table where soft music played. The moment felt simple yet meaningful. They talked about their lives, their families, their dreams. Nothing heavy, nothing rushed, just real connection forming gently. As the evening light faded through the cafe windows, Emily realized she wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't confused. She felt something steady building, something honest. Daniel looked at her with the same softness she had seen on the rooftop. "Emily," he said quietly, "whatever this becomes, I want it to grow naturally. No pressure. It's two people learning each other at the right pace." Emily nodded, feeling her heart settle with warmth. "I think that's exactly what I want too." They didn't touch hands. They didn't make promises. They didn't need anything dramatic. The connection itself was enough. As they walked out into the cool Seattle night, side by side, Emily felt something she hadn't felt since moving to the city. She felt like she was finally where she was meant to be. And this time, she wasn't walking alone.